Connie, if you could switch it off just as we start. Okay, Robert started. Great, thank you. Well, it's more or less 4 o'clock, so we'll make a start. Well, thank you everyone for coming along to the webinar today, and it's a great pleasure to have with us Kerry Trow from Twinkl. And if you're familiar with Twinkl, it's a fantastic resource. I've used it quite often myself. But today we're going to look at something a bit different, which I think will be of great interest. So the things we're going to be looking at today is how we can maybe use Twinkl resources to help to support emotional regulation, particularly with the focus on AAC support with Twinkl Symbols. So really looking forward to this, and I'll hand over to Kerry just now. Are you okay, Kerry, to go?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, great stuff, thanks. And we'll, if you have any questions, pop them into the chat and we'll get Kerry to answer them towards the end of the session in about 20 minutes time. So thanks, Kerry, over to you. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you ever so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me. My name's Kerry Trow, and I am the Educational Content Lead for Symbols at Twinkl. We're really excited to be here and to be able to share some of the lovely resources that we have available for supporting learners with emotional regulation. So just before I get started on the emotional regulation side of things, I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to Twinkl Symbols for anyone that is not familiar with us. So Twinkl Symbols aims to make everyday communication accessible to all learners. So it comprises 3 different content lines. So we've got a range of complementing tools and resources designed to give learners with SEND an alternative way to communicate through visuals in everyday situations. Now, at the bottom of the screen there, you have the 3 different aspects to Twinkl Symbols. We've got the ready-made symbolised resources, which we have available to download on our website. These are all linked to national curriculum subjects or everyday situations. We have lots and lots of resources available for you. However, if you can't find exactly what you're looking for, or you need something a little bit more bespoke or personalised, we have the Symbols web tool. This is a web-based app which gives you access to all of our symbols, plus around 150 different templates, so you can create exactly what you want for the learners that you're working with. We also have our Symbols mobile app. This too enables you to have to provide learners with symbol support, whether that be in the classroom, at home, in the community, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. You can create communication boards and communication books on there. We have symbol mode, so you can search through and find exactly the symbol that you want for a particular situation. We have our type to talk function where the learner or yourself can type words or sentences into the app and it will read those aloud. We have transitional supports, including now and next and scheduling type resources, plus timers and spinners. And we have our button mode where you can program buttons to show individual symbols and to read out the phrase of your choice, really. So there's lots and lots to offer there, but I will be referring to each of these as we go through to give you examples of how you can support learners with emotional regulation. So let's have a look at emotional regulation. So emotions are a natural part of life. We all experience them. We all experience a change of them across the day, across the setting, you know, depending on who we're with and the activity that we're doing. Now, for all of us, or for the vast majority of us, our ability to emotionally regulate develops as we go through childhood, through adolescence and into adulthood. Some of us, admittedly, are better at emotionally regulating than others. However, for many learners with SEND, the understanding behind emotions and expressing emotions can be challenging. And based on that alone, the ability to regulate their emotions can also be difficult too. So let's just stop for a minute and let's just have a look at symbols and what they are before we look at how we can use them to support learners. So symbols are simple visual representations of words, concepts and ideas. On the right hand side of the screen there, we've got the symbols for sad, yes, car and ball. So as you can see, they're quite simple in their design, but they're designed to be very iconic so that they're easy to interpret for our learners. They can support both receptive and expressive language, so both understanding the information that we're trying to convey to a learner or the instructions that we're trying to give them or the environmental text that we're trying to to enable them to understand, but also their expressive language, their ability to communicate with us using symbols where perhaps they choose not to, or they're not able to use their own voice or verbal language. They also provide a permanent and unchanging point of reference. It's important to mention at this point that society kind of expects that when we give a learner a verbal instruction, perhaps that it's snack time, that within just a few seconds they're able to take in what we say and process those sounds into words and phrases that they're familiar with, and then make a decision about the best course of action in terms of next steps. And if at any point during that process things break down, perhaps they're not able to retain the information, or they're not sure about how to process and understand something specific that was said, things break down, and it's understandable that, you know, miscommunication, misinterpretation of what's been said, or perhaps an inappropriate response is made. If, however, we introduce visuals alongside perhaps what we're saying verbally, it gives that point of reference for a learner to come back and to in a very iconic visual representational way, you know, they can use that as a point of reference to refer back to what information is being conveyed to them, so that they can begin to process that and respond accordingly. So symbols, why are they so good at supporting emotional regulation? So as I've mentioned before, they provide visual representations of complex and abstract concepts, and feelings and emotions really are the epitome really of complex and abstract. They're not things that we can hold. They're not things that we can see easily, although we can see it in other people. Again, that, you know, that presents issues in itself. But it gives that easily understood representation of something that is quite difficult perhaps to understand fully. Symbols can reduce sensory overwhelm and demands to interpret or process new information. So in terms of sensory overwhelm, when children and, you know, young people are heightened, things can get noisy, they can get busy, they can get chaotic. But, you know, in those instances, it's quite appropriate in a lot of circumstances to remove the verbal and perhaps just to rely on those visual cues. So it takes out the noise, it quietens the situation down. It reduces the amount of different senses that we're trying to appeal to in terms of communication, and it gives the learner space and the time to process what they're being asked to do. With regards to demands to interpret, process new information, so symbols wouldn't be something you would just introduce or use when a child or a young person was heightened. It would be something that they would use across their day as their form of communication, or supplementing and supporting understanding. So if you are able to introduce symbols when learners are calm and regulated, then obviously if you then present them when they are feeling heightened, then the demand to interpret or to understand new information is much less. But it also provides an alternative method of communication when learners cannot access verbal language. So in those heightened moments, the ability to access and to process verbal and auditory information can be significantly reduced. So by providing them with an alternative method of understanding, but also communicating with others, it can really, really help. So going back to emotional regulation, so there are 4 main key areas for emotional regulation to develop. So it's the awareness and recognition of emotions and feelings, the ability to communicate that with others, the understanding of the spectrum of feelings and emotions and where we sit at any particular point in time and how we can move from one area to another. And then, of course, that end goal of being able to regulate and change how we feel. So if we have a look first at recognising emotions in others and ourselves, so many learners with SEND find interpreting facial expressions, body language and tone of voice challenging. Now, 90% of what we say is non-verbal. So it's those, so it is the facial expressions, the body language, the tone of voice, the way of standing, the way we're, the volume of our voice, all of those kind of things. And if 90% of what we say is difficult to understand, then it's not surprising that we have learners that perhaps respond in an unexpected way, or have those breakdowns in understanding what we're trying to say to them. Interpreting internal sensations as emotions can be difficult for learners to send. We have, you might feel hot, you might feel sweaty, you might have a tummy ache if you're feeling angry, but being able to link all of those things to an emotion can be really, really difficult. So we need to support our learners by explicitly teaching them that all of these things can link to emotions and what they look like for them. So symbols can help learners to develop a visual understanding of emotional cues in others and of how to link bodily sensations to their own emotions. So for each of these steps, I'm going to give you an example of how the different aspects of Twinkl Symbols can be used to support your learners with their emotional regulation skills. So with regards to awareness and recognition of emotions, the Symbols app is really great in that you can program and you can choose your own symbols to put on sound buttons. So this is a sound button that I created using the happy symbol. So the symbol's presented alongside the text, and if a learner was to press that button, then it would speak aloud the word happy. So it's really great for learners to explore. If I touch this symbol, this image, then hearing that word back, it begins to make those links between the visual representations and what that sounds like. Using the web tool in the middle there, I have created a set of flashcards with the different emotions. So again, you could use that alongside an activity, or perhaps a mirror activity where you're looking at your own reflection, or you're looking at photographs of other people, or you're actually looking at other people, and using that to comment on what you can see in terms of how another person is presenting. With our symbols resources, we've got a lovely resource there, the Recognizing Emotions PowerPoint. So obviously within this, I've got a screenshot there of the happy slide. So we've got the symbol, we've got the text, and we've got a photograph of a real person. So again, it's a great talking point. That person's happy. How do we know? What clues have we got that they're happy, or any other emotion that's within the PowerPoint? But this is about developing that vocabulary and the understanding and those cues as to what each emotion looks like within our learners. So moving on to communicating emotions, being able to communicate feelings is a significant step in managing emotions, and it gives learners a voice to share their feelings and seek help. Now, as adults supporting symbols users, it can be all too easy to assume that we know how they're feeling based on their presentation. But if we actually think, perhaps they're looking, as though they're feeling angry today, and we then step in to support them in that manner, when actually they're feeling something completely different, it's understandable that learners can become frustrated. They can be, it can increase or decrease how they're feeling. But being able to communicate exactly how they're feeling with an adult. So actually, I'm not feeling angry. You said that I'm feeling angry, but actually I'm feeling really sad today. That can reduce the frustration on the learner's part, but it can also help adults to provide that timely and more appropriate support, which can help. So having a look at our symbols app, this is an example of our type to talk function. So within this screen, a learner, all the adults supporting them can type in a sentence, they can type in individual words, whatever it is that is appropriate for that situation. In this instance, I put, I feel very angry today. And then at the bottom of the screen, we've got the play button. So a learner can press the play button and it will read that sentence aloud. And as you can see, when I've typed in that sentence, it has symbolised it for me. And you do have the option to print that out. So, if perhaps not in this instance, but perhaps if you were doing a piece of work and you wanted a symbolised record of what a child had said, you could type this in and print it out to be stuck into a book or into a worksheet as a record of the piece of work. But lots of different functions for the type to talk function on the app. On the Symbols web tool, this is just another example of one of the templates that we have available. So this is a communication fan, and as you can see there, I've put on the different emotion symbols. So if you printed that off and created a communication fan, then the learner would have different ways of telling you. So you could use it, a learner could use it to indicate to an adult how they're feeling, but you could also use it as sort of more of a commenting tool, showing them different pictures or talking about a situation. and then they could use the communication fan to indicate or comment on what they could see. And then we've got the symbols resources on the end there. So it's a how am I feeling chart. So you would print off the baseboard and perhaps stick it up on the wall or on a child's desk or in their book, and then they could use and choose the appropriate symbols to communicate with an adult how they're feeling. It could be something that you revisit through the day, you know, as a checking in process or a way of tracking how they are feeling that day. Moving on to understanding, so the spectrum of emotions that we feel and the areas of self-regulation. So as you can see on the right hand side there within the feelings wheel, we've got the 4 different colours of the areas and all of the or some of the emotions that you might experience within each of those areas. And developing an awareness, a self-awareness for learners is really key in terms of moving forward in their emotional regulation. So once a learner recognises their emotional state and which area that this falls within, they can begin to understand how they can move from one area to another or another feeling to another, or make changes to regulate or even to match the energy levels required for a task. So it's important to state at this point that the goal with areas of self-regulation is not just to achieve green, you know, to be in that green area where you're focused, ready and relaxed. Obviously, those are really, really key things for, you know, when you're doing specific activities, but there are at times a need for a different energy level. For example, if you were doing sort of a pamper type session where you were doing massage and things, then you might almost want to edge into that blue area where a learner can feel calm and they can be very still. But equally, you might have a learner who is going to play football for their team and they want to be excited and they want to be pumped up and ready to give of their best and to be competitive. So, you know, being in the green just won't cut it. So being able to understand how we move from green to yellow is really important. So some resources that can help with this. So in the Symbols app, I've pulled up one of the communication boards that we have on there. So this is a mood board. And as you can see, we have got the different coloured backgrounds to match the areas of self-regulation. When you're creating any communication board or book on the Symbols app, you can personalise the colour of the background. You know, obviously that's really great for areas of self-regulation or things like colourful semantics. So even if you use some of the boards that we have that are ready-made there, you can tweak them, you can edit them so that they fully meet your needs. But that's great for a learner being able to communicate what emotion they're experiencing, but also what area of self-regulation they're also in as well. The Symbols web tool in the middle, I've used one of the templates there for matching activities. So this would be great in like a workstation basket or, you know, as independent work or morning work activities to try and really reinforce to learners which feelings feature within each of the areas of self-regulation. So it's a nice matching activity, matching the feelings to the area of self-regulation. And then our Symbols resources. So this is our areas of self-regulation display pack. So we've got large posters there with the coloured shape in the middle. And on each poster you have those visual reminders of the different emotions that feature within each of those areas of regulation. So it's a great point of reference that you can use during the day, so, you know, a way of checking in, a way of identifying which area you're in, and then, you know, looking at strategies as to how you can move from one area to another. And then finally, looking at regulating strategies. So when heightened learners often need familiar and predictable ways in which to move forwards. Some learners respond well to choices, others to much more directed action. So it might be for learners that respond well to choices that you have symbolised flashcards perhaps of activities that they really like or that regulate them really well for them to choose from. So, you know, you could have those printed out as posters or as flashcards to choose from, or even a choice board. But others need much more directed action. So it might be a set of symbolised instructions that you can work through step by step by step. So breaking down those strategies into clear symbolic steps makes them easier to follow, especially for learners who struggle to process verbal instructions. So if you are experiencing that child who is very, very heightened and you want to support them to move towards regulating strategies, it might be that you cut out those verbal instructions and you know, prompt them to work through a set of instructions, you know, just by pointing to the symbols in turn. And giving them that ownership over moving through that process. And it can offer a sense of calm and order when things feel overwhelming. So again, it slows things down, it cuts out the noise, and it helps children it gives them space and time to process their thoughts and, you know, make the decisions about how they're going to act accordingly. So just having a look at some of the resources that we have available. So on our Symbols app, this is one of our transition templates. So this is our first, next, and then. So as you can see, I've populated that with some of our symbols. So deep breathing, listening to music, and then walk. But you can personalize that to whatever you want. It can be something that an adult will support them through using, you know, accessing on a phone or a tablet or on an Apple Watch. You know, but there is also the option, because if you touch any of the buttons or any of the text on there, it will read them aloud. So it does facilitate that independence, perhaps when, you know, children don't want to be talked to in that moment. They would rather, you know, take the ownership and do it themselves. But having that voice output enables them to do that if they can't fully understand the text themselves or the symbols themselves. Moving on to the web tool. So we do have lots and lots of templates available, but we also have the ability to create resources from scratch, and this is one that I have created, you know, from scratch. So this is a My Calm Down choice board. So when you're creating things from scratch, you can adjust the size of the symbols, you can adjust the size of the text, you can adjust how many symbols are presented. You know, perhaps you need more or less on a board than is available on a template. So there is the options to do that should you need to. And then at the end there, we've got symbols resources, understanding how to self-regulate. This is a really, really lovely resource that aims to promote autonomy and independence for learners around their self-regulation. So it might be that you sit with a learner and you explore a range of regulating strategies with them and observe how they respond and have those discussions. So, you know, when you're feeling sad, what could we do that might make you feel better? So they can almost create their own self-regulation plan. So that gives them ownership over the plan and how their regulation is going to be supported by an adult, but it also supports the adults supporting that young person too. So that's a really, really lovely resource. And just to finish, I just wanted to share a few things that we at Twinkl Symbols are really, really proud of. So we are a NACEN assured product. We're the only AAC provider in the UK to have NACEN assured status, and this effectively means that we've been assessed by external specialist NACEN and judged against their quality framework for accessibility and quality. So you can be really reassured that everything that we offer meets the highest of standards with regards to accessibility and quality. With our web tool and our Symbols app, you have the ability to create your own resources. Whilst we have a range of ready-made resources on site, the ability to quickly make your own very personalised resources can be invaluable, and that's really easy to do. Symbols aims to aid communication through everyday support for learning. So as well as having the symbols as a form of AAC, we also have the voice output. So it gives our learners that perhaps don't have their own voice or choose not to use their own voice, you know, the empowerment to communicate verbally with others. We're really, really keen to support you guys as the adults and the, you know, the professionals supporting our Symbols users around building your own skills and confidence using symbols. So we have CPD sessions, we have teach meets and webinars such as this one, and we have blogs, and those are all available for free on our website. And then just finally, and this is so important to us, as an organisation and as me from Twinkl Symbols, that it's really affordable. So both the app and the web tool are available for free. There is no charge at all for either. The ready-made resources are available with a Twinkl membership. So obviously there is a cost element to that, but obviously alongside that you get access to everything else that Twinkl has to offer as well. But it's so important for us that those that need symbol support have it, and it's available, and it's not, you know, it's not put behind any barriers in terms of affordability. So yeah, that was a whistle-stop tour of symbols and of how you can use symbols to support your learners with emotional regulation. I hope that you found it really useful, and I am absolutely more than ready to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thanks, Kerry. That was really interesting. The symbols look fantastic, lovely and colourful. Yes, so please feel free to pop questions in the chat, or if you want to use your microphone, use your mic to ask Kerry any questions. I have one, if that's okay. Have you had much feedback from schools or teachers or organisations who have been using the Twinkl Symbols, and you willing to share any of that feedback?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the feedback is overwhelmingly positive. You know, that saying how easy it is to use. Lots and lots of people, however, weren't aware that this is something that Twinkl did. So that we're doing lots of work around awareness, you know, for schools, parents, educators, and any other professionals. But yeah, once they do, once they are aware of what we have to offer, and they give it a go, they just say how useful it is, and the fact that we've got the 3 different aspects to symbols, it means that you can support really holistically. You can support at school, at home, in the community, and yeah, obviously with it being free, you know, it just means that it's just another barrier less to overcome, really.
Thanks, Kerry. Joanna, who's our AAC speech language therapist specialist here at Call, has asked, is it free to make your own symbol resources on the web version too?
Yeah, absolutely free. You do need a Twinkl account, but you can do so for free. There is no obligation to create, you know, to take out a membership or a subscription.
Okay. Mrs. Gary is asking, what would you suggest is the best starting point?
It very, very much depends on where your learner is, you know, the symbols user that you're supporting is. I would probably approach it in the sequence that I've presented today. So you're looking at awareness and recognition of emotions and feelings, and for lots of users with SEND and, you know, speech and language communication needs, that can be a really huge development point, and something that needs an awful lot of work in terms of being able to recognise how people present, but also how emotions present within themselves. But then moving through to communication, understanding the areas of self-regulation, and then you know, ways in which to regulate themselves, or co-regulate with support from an adult.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. And we will be sending the video out as well to everyone, so you'll be able to, you know, scrub through the video and see that kind of process that Kerry's talked about. Joanna's asking again, can you add your own photos to resources you make in the app?
So in the app, you can add photographs from your camera roll. It is something we are looking to introduce into the web tool. So yeah, keep an eye out for any updates with regard to the web tool in the next, you know, in the next 6 months or so, but that's definitely coming. But yeah, you can absolutely use your own photographs in the app.
Yeah, great stuff. So are there any more questions for Kerry? If not, we'll close the session. Here we go. Karen is asking, where do you find the templates on the web version?
So when you go into the web tool, if you just type in Symbols web tool, when you get into the main landing page, it will take you to the Symbols landing page. It will then prompt you to start creating now, and then it will give you the option. You can either create your own resource from scratch, or it will direct you to the templates, and obviously there's a menu there that you can choose from as to the different types of templates that we have available.
So I've posted a link to the Twinkl website, and there's a search bar there. So is that where you would do the search for the templates on the web version? Yeah.
Yeah, so if
Oh,
you
yeah.
if you type in
Joanna's
Twinkl,
popped it in. Yeah, Joanna's
oh,
popped it in. That's
amazing.
great. Thanks, Joe. Thanks. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, I think we'll close the session. And thanks again to everyone for attending. And thank you to Kerry as well for a really informative and colourful session as well. So thank you.
Very
Thanks,
well.
everyone.